I'm currently living in an abandoned hospital in rural Tennessee.
There's a lot of questions to be had there.
Please ask. I am doing a rotation for general surgery in a rural hospital in Livingston, Tennessee. And as part of this, they had a place for me to stay 15 minutes north in Salina, Tennessee. And so I am currently staying in a old doctor's lounge from a hospital that they are trying to get back on its feet.
Well, you're just living in an old doctor's lounge?
I'm literally living.
You're just squatting in the break room from Scrubs?
Now, this is not that uncommon. Hospitals will usually have places for traveling doctors, especially rural ones, but there is an entire wing of this hospital that is empty, and I am downstairs, just hanging out across from the place where they keep the towels.
That's so just living in a Silent Hill video game.
Yes,
just kind of enjoying that.
I'm going to get hosteled or sawed, or both if I'm lucky.
Well, on the plus side, you'll have the rest of eternity to get to know all the other ghosts. So that'll be cool.
Right.
Yeah, rural Tennessee hospital. You got to have some good ghosts there. I mean, there's some good Confederate ghosts roaming around.
Apparently, the only ghost is a night nurse who once worked here who had narcolepsy, and she would pass out while charting. And this was like in the 80s and 90s. So
that's the only ghost so far
that I've been told about. I'm sure Pyramid Head they're saving that one for later.
You legit should just set up cameras and then record daily. Send me the footage. I'll chop it together. It'll be the new Blair Witch. We'll be good to go.
No, I don't want to do that. I'm fine.
Your final moments will be captured, though. You'll be a star.
You'll be like Grizzly Man, but for doctors.
The fact that you have old acting credits will just lend a credence. It'll go crazy.
You know, I see where you're going with this, and I appreciate that you're going there. I really want the best for you. But listen, as my part of my mental health, these last few rotations, I've decided there is a loving God, and there is a light for me at the end of this. So, I didn't do this out of choice. I did this because I had no choice. So, inshallah, brothers. I want to say one more thing about this town. There's a bar in it called Shakey's, and they're the kind of place that just like hands you a beer, and it's like not even like that cold or open, and it's thick with smoke, and it's just horrible. But they don't accept credit cards, but they have an ATM in the back, and the ATM just gives you a piece of paper that has like 5 check marks on it, and that's how many beers it's good for. And then so after you like run it for $20, you then take your like token up to the bar, and that's how many beers you get.
They created a Dave & Buster's economy, but for booze? What the fuck?
And this is in a converted like single wide trailer. None of the things I'm saying
Hold
I'm
on.
making up.
Let me open up a
1,000%
screenplay
true.
document here. Keep going. Tell me more about this town that you're definitely not going to get murdered in.
Definitely not.
It's amazing.
My favorite thing about the South is there's always some new horrifying thing I didn't know about. Somehow, it still exists. This town, is it like deep in the mountains and there's only like 1 or 2 ways in and out?
There's no traffic lights.
Yes, excellent.
Yeah.
Is there like one line that runs the electricity, something that'd be easy to be taken down in a storm of some sort, perhaps?
I mean, I think this hospital has an emergency generator. I think there was a law about that.
Yeah.
Oh no, it
There it
absolutely does, because then
All
when
coming together.
otherwise you don't get the flickering light effects when Pyramid Head is chasing you through the hallways. Has to have a generator.
Yeah. And the lights flicker, believe me, like they're not on consistently.
I'm so glad I have this recorded for when I go back to write the horror movie about this.
The kids are gonna be like, there's zombies outside. Their faces are rotting. Their teeth are falling out. And I'll just be like, yeah, dude, it's meth. Like it's a serious problem.
It's just the fucking South. It's just New Yorkers who think this is a horror movie and they're just in the South. Welcome to Awful. This is Brett. Everyone was bored.
I am Brad at Fizz for Shizzle.
I am Nathan at Mark's Madness Pod.
Rob won't be joining us this week. I woke up Monday. I went to see if Rob wanted some coffee, but he was just gone. Phone, wallet, keys, headphones, all of them gone. Laptop gone. And the only thing that was left behind that I could get anything out of, he left a dog-eared copy of Eat, Pray, Love next to a Fodor's Guide to Eastern Europe. And the only clothes that were missing were his Polish clothes and track pants. So I'm not really sure what's going on there, and hopefully he'll be back soon, but... Yeah, no, Rob had a medical emergency, so it is not COVID related.
No.
Or rather, I should say it's not COVID. It's COVID related in that it probably would have gotten fixed before it turned into an emergency situation if it were not for COVID shutting everything down. So I'm not sure when he'll be back. We're hoping he'll be back next week, but we're kind of waiting to see on that one. But yeah, Rob was really frustrated to miss this one. He's been doing a lot of writing. He had a bunch of content developed. And I actually went to see, because I was like, all right, well, let me see if I can use some of his notes. So I went and checked his room, and he just has a whole wall dedicated to his notes. And I'll be honest, I couldn't really understand it. It was just covered with unrelated pictures, and the whole thing is just like connected together with red twine. And all leads back to the center. And in the center, there is one note I could read, and it was just circled like 6 or 7 times. And it just said in all caps, CD's nuts. And I don't know how to use that, so...
I think you just have.
The prestige.
But yeah, we'll still draw on.
Prayers up for Pod Dad.
Growing up in the South, as I was telling Nathan beforehand, I got to hear a lot about the Confederacy because I knew my great-grandparents and they were convinced we were related to Robert E. Lee. We're not. And so after a while, you get to know the Confederacy better than you have ever wanted to because they never shut the fuck up about it. Robert E. Lee was talked about more positively and frequently than 90% of my family members. So I at a certain point, you glom on to historical figures that fucked over the Confederates, and Montgomery Meigs is number 1 on my list outside of Grant. Grant's a piece of shit though, so it's easier to like Meigs. So this dude was the quartermaster general for the Union. So all those stories about how the Civil War was won partly because the Union had more men and they had more money and they had more industry, and also because they had the best logistics. That was all Meigs.
The best story I remember reading about Meigs was that he was haranguing Sherman because the mules were dying too fast. And he was like, well, I've calculated how much they can go on average and how much they can carry to get there. So if they're not doing what I thought they should do, that means you're not using them correctly, William Tecumseh. So maybe fix your shit.
That's how much of a badass he was. He basically told Sherman to get his shit together. And he, pre-war, he was in the military as well. He went to West Point with all these other douchebags, and he actually built the Capitol building, the dome and the wings of the Capitol, the United States Capitol building. Montgomery Meigs built that. Like, he oversaw the construction of all of that. But the reason, that's all cool. That's just all window dressing for why he's awesome. The reason I love him is because he was quartermaster general during the Civil War for the Union. And at a certain point, they started running out of cemetery space for all the bodies because Civil War was incredibly bloody. And they didn't have any place to bury the soldiers in and around DC anymore, so they scouted new locations. And Meigs settled on a solution that solved a bunch of problems at once, because the best location was actually Robert E. Lee's property because it was high, it didn't flood. And Robert E. Lee, for those who don't know, literally owned pretty much all of the area just across the river from DC. That was almost all of that used to be his property. And so Meigs went, okay, well, we'll start burying soldiers there. At the time, a few people tried to convince him not to, or to do it on the fringes. And instead, he made sure to bury Union officers in the flower beds. And Robert E. Lee's son at one point came by to look at it and said, well, if we disinterred the bodies, I'm sure we could take our land back. Meigs, hearing this, redoubled his efforts and made sure that there was thousands of people buried on the property by the time the war ended. Why? Because fuck Robert E. Lee. Explicitly, to fuck Robert E. Lee over. Because the one thing he didn't want, because he knew there was a good chance when the war ended, Robert E. Lee was going to get off largely scot-free. And he was like, there's no fucking way that motherfucker's coming back to his property. So he made sure that it was politically impossible for Robert E. Lee to ever get his property back. So Post-war, Robert E. Lee couldn't return. His son sued the United States government, took it all the way to Supreme Court, saying that it was illegal to seize that property. Meigs the entire time fought it as like, no, fuck you. This is a now very important cemetery. You're not touching it. And so they gave just the house back to Robert E. Lee's son. And then Meigs turned around and just bought the house off him. Just the house. All the property is already gone. The house is still there, by the way. That's Arlington National Cemetery. That is Robert E. Lee's former plantation. Is now Arlington National Cemetery, built by Montgomery Meigs to fuck over Robert E. Lee. His house still exists on the property. You can see it. That's the only Confederate thing on there that should stand. They, at one point, the fucking Daughters of the Confederacy managed to get a Confederate soldier monument put on there, which is just absolutely disgraceful, and it shouldn't exist. But every other part of that property was built up by Meigs. It's fucking amazing. He went on later to build the what is now the National Building Museum as well. It used to be the Civil War Pension Building, which is cool as fuck. So yeah, Montgomery Meigs, an actual incredibly dope general from the Civil War. If you need someone to fucking stand from the Civil War, he's a far better choice than all of these racist fuckwits the South loves. And originally born in Georgia.
Hey,
Montgomery Meigs, a messy bitch who loved drama.
Oh yeah, his son died during the war, and he was convinced that he had been killed after he surrendered. And everybody was like, "There's no proof of that." And to his deathbed, he was like, "Yeah, I don't trust those motherfuckers." Like,
and the great thing, he's from Georgia, and instead, when we put our Civil War heroes on the side of Stone Mountain, we picked 3 people that weren't even from Georgia. So, fuckers.
Absolute cuck move.
God.
Can I tell a good Civil War story since we're here and since you're from Florida?
Absolutely. We're shitty Southerners. Like, this is like,
yes.
Brad, you grew up with the same shit like I did too, right?
Not
We're like,
only did I grow up with this, but I am descended from one John C. Calhoun, former vice president and senator from South Carolina, whose statue was torn down today. And let me tell you, to everyone listening, to all of our millions of fans out there, especially in Charleston, South Carolina, I give my consent for that statue to go. I have final legal saying on this. Throw that shit into the bay. I don't give a fuck. All right, let me tell you a funny story about Sherman. This is a good story. Brett, This is for you. Rob, wherever you are, I hope you
know I love a good Sherman story.
Oh, yeah. So Sherman's one of his first postings after West Point was going down to Florida. This war was going nowhere. They were fighting the Seminoles. Eventually, what they learned was that every summer they would just stop fighting, and the Seminoles would say, "Yeah, we surrender," and the troops would be like, "Hey, we won." And then winter would come, and the Seminoles would just start fighting again. There was nothing to them. Like at one point, their chief surrendered, and then a few months he just left and started fighting again. Like they just didn't understand this concept of surrender. And so finally, Sherman said, "I'm sick of this shit. I'm sick of Florida. I'm getting the fuck out of here," and he decided to just burn all their crops down and kill all their livestock. And then they surrendered. So following this conclusion to this war, Sherman got a sweet gig in a nice little resort town. And what would happen is all these drunk boys had gone up to Tennessee to fight Native Americans up there, and on the way they would say they lost their horse, and in this time they were volunteers, they were going up, and so they would get a free horse from the government. But this was, like, "Oh, I lost 10 horses. It was really terrible. I fought so many Indians, blah, blah, blah." And so Sherman went to this little resort town to see who was really lying about these horses, and it was a totally sweet gig, and he hiked around, and he just relaxed and had a good time. This town was called Marietta, Georgia. It is right north of Atlanta. And so when Sherman came in, and Kennesaw Mountain is the mountain there, when Sherman came in to march on Atlanta, they had set up their lines all along Kennesaw Mountain. And Sherman knew those lands better than any of them, and he knew how to get around it. So just like a nice little, hey, I killed all the Seminoles. I hated Florida so much, I figured a way to get out of it. I learned how to wage total warfare on a population that won't surrender. And the reason I know your defenses is because one time I was here making sure you dumb racist hicks weren't defrauding the government for horses that you said were killed fighting Native Americans in Tennessee. My favorite little war story. Huzzah!
By the way, this is why I like Meigs better, because I don't have to do the first he killed a ton of indigenous people, and
but
then
also,
he killed the racists. It's like,
Sherman did. I mean, he did do
Sherman's
a whole Mao thing for a minute, and killed all the landlords, and that was. I mean, we have to acknowledge when a guy does a good thing. I'm just saying, he might be a shithead, but
When Sherman got to the coast, he broke up all the landowners and gave land to the newly freed African American slaves. It was, and he didn't care. He was like, "Do what you want." Now, Sherman really, really, really hated Native Americans.
No, that comes through.
Yeah,
super duper.
Really.
I mean, when you pull a fucking
Americans.
Caesar on the locals, that's message received.
Yeah, but hey, African Americans, he was ahead of his time.
Mixed bag for Sherman, but plus side is the best thing he did is completely and utterly demolish Atlanta and South Carolina. That's the part that people always
forget. He
forget.
didn't demolish Atlanta. That is a myth. He did destroy South Carolina. Like, he burned Columbia into ash, and then he scattered the ashes. But Atlanta was destroyed by the retreating Confederate armies who set their fucking ammunition train on fire because they didn't want the Union to get it. And it just so happens that when you set a train on fire full of ammunition, it fucking blows up. And it just basically wiped out the entire town. And then Sherman saw like a train track that hadn't melted and just wrapped it around a tree and left.
A lot of Sherman apologia is what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
I mean, he definitely destroyed South Carolina, which, considering they literally started the Civil War, good. I don't know why they're still a state. They should have already been merged into North Carolina just to be Greater Carolina.
We don't want them. We have enough problems in North Carolina.
No, I know you definitely do, and yet somehow South Carolina is still far worse.
It's much worse.
That is their nature. They also, by the way, South Carolina was the one, they tried to secede from the Union earlier too. Like that wasn't even their first attempt.
No.
Was done by my great-great-great-grandfather as part of the Nullification Act. It's why he left the vice presidency and went back to the Senate. John C. Calhoun's most famous quote: "Slavery is not a necessary evil; it is a beneficial good."
All right. Oh, really glad.
In case anybody ever claims he wasn't racist, like Jesus. Yeah, as you have two people here on the podcast who literally have Confederates in their history. Yeah, fuck them. They're a bunch of losers. They're fucking terrible, racist pieces of shit. The people who still stand it are terrible, racist pieces of shit. And it's such a delight, genuine delight, every time I see another one of those fucking statues go down. So I love all of it. I hope we're also going to change all the goddamn high schools called Robert E. Lee High School that are always in fucking black neighborhoods. So that would be the next step. So hopefully we'll get on that one and take down that fucking Confederate monument in Arlington. That one actually really pisses me off. There should not be a goddamn Confederate monument in the National Cemetery. If you're a traitor, you don't get a fucking gravestone.
And then we're going to go down to Georgia. And we're going to scrub
Stone
Robert E.
Mountain's the
Lee
last one,
and
yeah.
Stonewall Jackson and Jefferson Davis from the side of Stone Mountain. And we're going to put Big Boy and Andre 3K on there. Can I get a hell yeah?
I think someone on Twitter posted the meme, but it was best, but it was just like statue tear down final boss. It was just a picture of Mount Rushmore. And I'm like, all right, yeah, no, I'm on board. Let's go.
Other thing going on besides the really amazing ongoing Black Lives Matter protests and the defund the police shit, which
is working.
Yeah. Not only is it's working, it's so nice to see the full solidarity too, where everybody is like, listen, we all have our disagreements, but we can all agree, fuck the police. And that has absolutely been the truth. And the police are doing their usual job of encouraging everyone to hate them even more. So it's so nice to see people keeping up the pressure because shit keeps moving. It's awesome. That said, the cops have switched back to doing their usual thing, which is, I don't know how this started or why it started, but they're obsessed with the place that they get victimized most is at the fast food place, right? Like whenever I'm picking up my burger, that's when I'm victimized the most as a police. It's just like, what the fuck, guys? So first, the NYPD came out and claimed that they were poisoned at the Shake Shack with bleach in their milkshakes, which, like...
That sounds like a band name. Like Panic at the Disco.
Poisoned at the Shake Shack?
Poisoned at the Shake Shack.
I wish Rob was here. Rob literally got poisoned at that same Shake Shack. I got like a really bad food poisoning. He was like, he was like, there's no fucking way. I've been there. The fucking health department investigated it afterwards. There's no way they got poisoned at that one. I guarantee it.
To be clear, that is the medical emergency. Like Rob got poisoned at the same time as these brave officers and had to.
He's a cop. Yes.
Rob is a cop, isn't he? Just say it. Like Rob's a cop.
He himself has said it multiple
God damn
times.
it, that's a different thing.
They claimed they fucking got bleach in the milkshakes, which like patently absurd for so many reasons. One, you taste the bleach. Two, what fucking idiot would attack the cops that way? Literally nobody. Nobody who's working there is doing that.
Doesn't do anything to you anymore. There's no unless somebody had like laboratory grade bleach that they had gotten from somewhere. Like just buying a thing over the counter will do nothing to you. If your child drinks bleach right now, we tell them to drink water.
Wait. Are you,
Oh, and he'll just puke it up.
You tell me I can drink bleach right now, Brad?
I'm telling you,
Trump told people to
ahead.
drink bleach.
Trump
So.
said it, and he was right. It will.
That's what I'm worried about. Is that might be a valid thing? Come on, let's not give.
No, I
them
mean
that.
it won't do anything. It's just like commercial bleach is so weak, right? For the obvious reason,
stink like shit. It does. Yeah, I've smelled it, and I have a hard time believing that like if you poured enough of it in my Shake Shack milkshake, that I could grab it and go, oh, this is totally normal, and not smell the fact that I smell like a public swimming pool.
Weren't they just like lactose intolerant? Like
They just got the runs. Yeah, that's the end of the story. Is the next day they were like, yeah, that's not true. They just got fucking diarrhea from Shake Shack, which like, welcome to everyone's experience with Shake Shack, guys. This isn't new. Like, it's like, as somebody with IBS, I was like, are you fucking serious right now?
like I drink PBR. That stuff gives me the shits all the time. I don't think some like guy in Richmond is trying to poison me.
It's a good thing none of them ate Chipotle during that fucking poisoning epidemic. God. And then, of course, the next day is this white woman cop crying about her McDouble because she couldn't see them prep it.
Well,
she was like, I could only take the coffee because I couldn't see them prep the food. And it's like, they still could have done something in your coffee, first off.
Yeah, I've peed in so much coffee, I don't even know,
Oh, God. Just things I miss about working in the fast food industry.
Peeing in cops' coffee. Yes, cop listening to this show, your coffee. And I eat a lot of asparagus.
It's so funny, though, because it's like, it speaks to, obviously they all think they're victims, but they genuinely believe this is the best example of them being victimized, is that somebody might poison their food. Like they're a fucking feudal lord back in the day. And if you don't have a food taster, your ass is dead, cop.
Do you know the best part of that story? And this is breaking news, by the way. She's not a cop.
Yeah, what is she? I saw that last night. What is she?
She answers phones at the sheriff's department.
Oh, fuck
amazing.
Off.
Oh my God, she's the enlisted wife of cops. That's so good. Oh, that explains so much then. The crying over service issues is like a go-to enlisted wife move. So 100% buy that one. God, that's amazing. Everything associated with cops is either brutally horrifying or just so fucking dumb you can't help but laugh. Usually it's kind of both because they're giant illiterate brutes who fucking don't know how to speak or walk straight or not shit their pants. Apparently that's a huge problem.
Is that just because people are refusing to allow them to use their bathrooms during these protests, which is pretty fantastic if true?
I don't know. I mean, Babs was on the show a few episodes ago, and since then she got arrested.
Yeah.
And while they were in the police van, they all made fun of a cop because he shit his pants. There's an epidemic of pants shitting in the NYPD.
7th largest military in the world. They can't buy these guys Pepto? What the fuck is going on?
They're all eating at Shake Shack. This is the problem.
Pack your goddamn lunch. It's just so absurd, and it keeps happening. I love it.
There is a massive walk-off from the Atlanta Police Department happening tonight.
Oh, shit.
Good. Fuck
Yeah.
'em. It's LAPD is having similar issues where they literally can't pay overtime, which LAPD gets over $1 billion a year in funding. So I don't know how it's possible that you can't afford overtime. I'm assuming it's the grenade launchers you put in schools, or your weird PR thing where you guys had a Lamborghini for a while. Like I'm guessing one of those. But
don't forget their fleet of Teslas.
Oh, that's right. The untouched electric cars that they have.
They're woke cops.
These are the softest fucking fascists anyone has ever seen. So keep up the pressure and they're all crumbling.
So literally in Atlanta right now, Zone 6 is radio silence on the police scanner. Zone 6 is like East Atlanta. That's where, Waka Flocka Flame is from.
Hell yes.
It's awesome.
I've had 2 experiences with Atlanta cops. One time they pulled a gun on me, and the other time they tried to plant a crack pipe. So
yeah.
And I'm like the whitest, like looking white guy at the white party.
Yeah, you look like a white Southern bro.
Yeah, I look like a Republican, like junior member of Congress. Like I look like Matt Gaetz' drinking buddy.
And they tried to plant drugs on you.
Oh yeah, it was funny. I walked on someone robbing my house. I was 21, and I chased the guy out with like a knife, and he was like some kid. And so I called the cops because I was a 21-year-old bitch, and the cops came and started going through my roommate's drawer, and they found his like $12 bowl he got from Spencer's that like lights up, and changes color when you use it.
Yeah.
And the cop was like, "What is this?" And I'm like, "I have no idea, officer. Never seen it before in my life." And the officer like, "This is a crack pipe." And I was like, "Oh, shut the fuck up. I'm from Cobb County, and I know that's not a crack pipe, bitch. Please." It fell out of the guy's pocket. What do you want me to say? Like, while he was robbing us, he left that. Eat shit.
Amazing. What was the gun thing?
Oh God, I was coming home from set. It was like 3 PM, and I made a right-hand turn onto a street that I can't make a right-hand turn on. And I was listening to my music, and like I was just like having a great time, slowly rolling down this street, Edgewood. And I was stopping at all the stop signs, and everyone was like waving to me, and I'm like, "Hey," I'm waving back, like it's my little neighborhood. And they were actually pointing at the cop car that had been following me for like a mile that I hadn't noticed. And so I pulled over like in the neighborhood in Inman Park, which is a very nice neighborhood in Atlanta. And this cop came out, gun drawn, screaming, hands up, hands up. And I'm like, "Oh my fucking God, this is it." And so I had my hands up out the window, and he's screaming like, "Where are your drugs? Where are the drugs?" And I'm like, "I don't have any drugs." And like I had just gotten off set, and so there were all these clothes in the back seat. He's like, "Are there drugs under the clothes?" And I was like, "No, there's no drugs." And he was like, "Damn." He was like, "Damn, man, you sure you ain't got any drugs?" And I'm like, "Yes, officer, there are no drugs." It was like, he's like, "I'm sorry, you just wouldn't stop." And I was like, "Well, I'm stopping all the stop signs. I just didn't see you." And he's like, "Yeah, I know, but you never know." And like then he got really like friendly. And but then like as I was having this conversation with him, like this gay couple walked by walking their dog, and they're like, "You don't have to say shit to him, honey. It's fine. Don't say anything." And
God,
so like
Atlanta.
Yeah, I love Atlanta. And then finally the cop, like after he wrote me my $185 ticket for turning left or making a right-hand turn on a no turn after a 3-lane, was just walking away. He's like, "So you sure you ain't got any drugs?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I promise you, there's no drugs."
Oh my God.
I've said
was
no
this when you were
6
coming
times,
back from the set of One Tree Hill?
Yeah, maybe the 7 times the charm.
Oh, what an amazing police force. Such a disappointment if they were all forced to resign in disgrace.
There was a great there's a great story someone told me. He was a cop in Atlanta, and he was like total disgrace to the force type guy. He was just there for the pension. But like he said in like 2000, these guys were trying to serve a warrant on a Friday night in Atlanta. These 2 cops were trying to be heroes, and they figured out the guy they were trying to serve this warrant on was at a Waffle House in Buckhead at like 3 AM. And a Waffle House in Atlanta on a Friday or Saturday night after midnight is nowhere you want to, well, I mean, or you do want to be, but like everyone in there is armed. So these 2 cops bust right through the door and pull their guns and like, "Police, hands up!" And everyone pulls a gun on them.
The Waffle House is sacred ground.
Yeah, you don't. It's
yes.
like it's like the Sunday truce. You don't fucking Waffle House. And he's
Seriously,
like, even
you really don't.
Yeah, the line cooks are pulling guns, like And so the 2 cops are apparently just like, "All right, okay, well, our fault. Nothing to see here." Just drove away.
Fuck God. Anyone who doesn't understand Waffle House culture, just come on, enjoy it.
Seriously, you genuinely don't fuck with Waffle House.
You
Like that's written in blood. Yeah. You don't fuck with it.
Yeah, like someone tries to rob a Waffle House, will get jumped by everybody in there, and then they'll all calmly go back to eating their food.
The people who work at Waffle House are better under pressure than literally all the troops I know. It's incredible because they just deal with insane bullshit night in and night out. It's unbelievable. Definitely better under pressure than any fucking cop.
There was one,
and better at talking people down. Like they can de-escalate anything.
There was one episode of Hell's Kitchen, or I don't know, whatever, some cooking show with Gordon Ramsay is, where like one of the contestants was like a Waffle House line cook, and she couldn't really make anything, but man, she could do it fast. And like You know,
that
like
rolls. That is the Waffle House promise. Yeah,
yeah.
It's not going to be really what you thought it was, but it'll come out quick.
No, but like she could make it was just he would like bark out these orders and he'd be with her like I need 15 of this one thing. And she's like got it, boom boom boom, it's done. And he loved her so much that he like paid for her to go to culinary school. And she didn't win, but he's like, you know what, I got you, fam. And she's like, thanks, sweetie.
Again, that's what they burned down a fucking Wendy's. They didn't burn down a Waffle House.
No one has ever burnt down a Waffle House.
Yeah, you saw the Atlanta protesters like protecting the Waffle House in right near CNN Center.
Waffle House is a sacred space. Everyone knows this.
Hell yes.
Anyway, thanks for listening, y'all. This is Brad at Relentless Board. We had Brad at Fizz Fashizzle, and we had Nathan at Mark's Madness Pod, which you should check out. They're in the middle of doing a reading of Black Reconstruction by W.E.B. Du Bois, which is a fantastic book and super relevant since you're learning all about how the South is still terrifying. Which wasn't the intent for the episode, but here we are.
We just did a whole episode on the Confederacy, didn't we? God damn it.
Yeah, well, it's in the news. And as someone who literally had to grow up hearing about this, good. I'm fine. I'm glad that knowledge finally was fucking useful and was during a period of positive feelings because all the Confederate monuments are coming down. So, hell yeah, I'll take it. Anyway, thanks for listening, y'all. We have back episodes on Patreon, and feel free to join us in the Discord. All right, thanks, guys.